My name is Sister Patricia Flynn. I'm a member of the philosophy department here at St. Joseph's College, and I want to welcome you to the St. Joseph's College Centennial Lecture Series. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, I want to acknowledge the sponsors for our centennial events. Our gold sponsors are Cross Insurance, FL Putnam, and Key Bank. Our silver sponsor is Gorham Savings Bank. Our bronze sponsors are Follett Higher Education Group, the Diocese of Portland, Penmore Lithographers, Homewood Benefits, and CB's Tophias Inc. We're grateful for the contributions that make all of our centennial events possible. I also want to highlight other centennial events that are part of this fall celebration, and hopefully you all received a little bookmark when you came in that lists these events. We're going to have a lecture in honor of Sister Consuelo White, who founded the nursing department here and also directed the Mercy Hospital School of Nursing, co-sponsored by the college and Mercy Hospital on November 2nd. You don't have to be in nursing or healthcare to come to that lecture. The topic is going to be nursing in the world of healthcare reform. On November 7th, we're going to be offering a journey back in time, a magical evening that will take you back to 1912 and celebrate a variety of events that made that year special, and there will be drama and music and food connected with that event. On November 13th, we will have our second faculty lecture featuring Dr. Nina Edgerly and Gail Marciano about education and encouraging students to think. And on December 4th, we will have our final faculty lecture featuring Dr. Johan Eriksson and the results of his geological journeys to the Andes. So all of these events are free, they're open to the public, and you can find more information on the college website. But tonight, we launch our fall series of faculty lectures with a presentation by Dr. Stephen Bridge. Dr. Bridge has been a member of the St. Joseph's faculty since 2000. Coming to us with a PhD in biblical theology from Marquette University. It would take longer than we have scheduled for the entire lecture to list his accomplishments. If I told you all about his articles and presentations and workshops, you'd never get to the coffee and gelato that really is the highlight of the evening. But I do want to mention, in particular, 3 books that he has published. Most of us are grateful if we can publish one. Steve has written Getting the Old Testament, What It Meant to Them and What It Means to Us, Getting the Gospels, Understanding the New Testament Accounts of Jesus' Life, and Where the Eagles Are Gathered, The Deliverance of the Elect in Lucan Eschatology. Steve is a popular professor in the classroom, but his commitment and interaction with students extends beyond the walls of the college. For many years, Steve has coordinated annual service trips to Haiti and Guatemala, preparing the students to go, overseeing clinics and construction sites in these areas, and then helping the students process their experience when they return. He truly has helped the students at St. Joseph's College realize the promise of putting faith into action, and for this we are very grateful. Tonight, Steve will be sharing with us some, but given the short time, certainly not all, of his 3-year search to follow in the footsteps of St. Paul, a journey that took him to Israel, Greece, and Rome. He hopes to give us a taste, figuratively and literally, of his wonderful journey. Steve's going to share some stories with us for probably a little over half an hour, and then we'll have a chance for questions and discussions, and we'll follow that by some special treats. Steve.
Thank you, Sister Pat. A couple little housekeeping things here before we begin. I know I'm pleased by the turnout tonight, so thank you all for coming. I notice all the free seats tend to be in the middle, so if it's possible, if you could move in and free up some of those free seats along the side, because we still have people coming in. if those of you can kind of move over, if you see a free seat in the middle, free up some of these seats so some of the folks can. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, and you may also want to turn off your cell phones or power them down. Just make sure nobody texts me during this presentation. I've still got mine. Okay. I find myself really with an embarrassment of riches here tonight. Somehow I'm supposed to compact three separate summer journeys to three different areas, all into a half-hour talk. And I really have an embarrassment of riches here to deal with. I feel very grateful. Each of these trips were really trips of a lifetime, and I really look forward to sharing what I've learned and gleaned from these trips with you all. And so I want to get started here. Just a little background. I received a faculty development grant. It was a 3-year grant to travel over 3 summers. First summer was spent in Israel in 2010. Second one was in Turkey and Greece, 2011, and then through Italy and Rome in 2012. Basically, I was following Paul's footsteps, St. Paul's footsteps, and I think he's a good subject for us as we're talking about realizing the promise. St. Paul really realized the promise of Christianity. In the book of Acts, after Jesus dies and rises and ascends, just before he ascends, he speaks to his disciples and he says, "You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, throughout Judea and Samaria, and unto the ends of the earth." And at the time when they were living, unto the ends of the earth meant Rome. They were in Jerusalem, and that was about as far. Rome and Spain was about as far as they could imagine. And St. Paul in particular was really instrumental in sharing his vision of Christianity and really sharing his passion for it with those people and really helped the spread. So in that respect, Paul really fulfilled the promise. In fact, as we'll see, your lives are touched by Paul even today, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So one more disclaimer here before we get going. What I have prepared is a fairly sophisticated, fairly technologically sophisticated piece here. So I'm hoping all goes well, but I apologize for any glitches as we go along. So we'll see. Okay. All right. So the question to begin with, why study St. Paul? Well, Paul's epistles constitute the earliest known records of Jesus of Nazareth. They are the earliest Christian writings that we have, and they are, of course, in the New Testament. They predate the Gospels. In fact, the majority of the New Testament writings, 14 out of 27, are traditionally attributed to him, although most scholars think he probably only wrote about 7 of the 14, but 14 have been traditionally attributed to him. So at least half the New Testament traditionally owes its origins back to Paul. And for better or for worse, Paul's theology has shaped some of the core tenets of Christianity, including justification by faith, the resurrection of the dead, the atonement of Christ, Christian marriage, the roles of women, and the nature, structure, and purpose of the church body. Because he has shaped these theological points, people tend to either really like Paul or really not like Paul, depending on what side of the theology you fall on. But far and away, Paul's most enduring legacy is that as the apostle to the Gentiles. And what I mean by that, and I mentioned earlier that many of us are affected, whether you know it or not, by Paul. I'm going to do a little experiment here. This is going to be interactional, so I hope you're ready for this. So this is what I want you to do. I want everybody in this auditorium to stand up. Okay. You guys ready for this? I hope so. All right. So if the Gallup polls are correct, about, if you represent, a swatch of America, about 85 to 90% of you would call yourselves Christians. So the vast majority of you would call yourselves Christians. But were it not for Paul, you probably could not be a Christian, all right? And here's what I mean, okay? So I'm going to go through some examples. If these apply to you, I want you to sit down, okay? If you have any tattoos or piercings, all right? Some of you just don't want to admit to any tattoos or piercings, all right? Good swap. We just wiped out a bunch of them, all right? Okay, are you gainfully employed? Do you have a regular job from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday? Do you have a regular job during those times? You need to sit down. Okay. We got some people holding out. Okay. Do you regularly eat ham, bacon, pork chops, shrimp, mussels, clams, oysters, lobsters, jello, or marshmallows? Eddie? Well, regularly. Nobody. I've got more to go through. I'm not even halfway through my list yet. You're not supposed to all sit down yet. All right. Do you wear clothes of cloth, cross-woven, or blended fabrics? If you have cotton polyester, if you got mixed fabrics, you would have to sit down. And man, you guys got out early here. And those males among you, if you have trimmed the hair on the sides of your head, okay, and I think that from what I have seen, I've been trying to wash people as they come in. I think that applies to just about, maybe not Greg, but just about everybody else. Yeah. So you're all sitting. So were it not for Paul, okay, none of you in this room could be Christians. Okay. And that's, that's something to think about. So by translating the beliefs of a small Jewish sect into a faith system that could be adopted by the Gentiles, Paul paved the way for a Christianity that today counts nearly all of its believers. That's 2.1 billion people. That's 1/3 of the world's population as its spiritual heirs. 1/3 of the world's population owes its faith to St. Paul. So it's pretty incredible. So I like to tell my students, the church may have been established upon Peter, but Paul's the one who filled it. Seriously. Okay, so who is St. Paul? All right. Now, we're going to do some fun stuff here, but you got to get through the, like I tell my dogs, you got to eat your vegetables before you get to the, So let me walk through a little bit St. Paul and St. Paul's biography here for those of you who don't know. By the way, these are the earliest known pictures of Paul that we have. These date back to about the 3rd and 4th centuries. The one on the left is from Ephesus. The one on the right is found and both these were recently discovered. The one on the right was discovered in some catacombs in Rome. So those are our earliest representations of Paul, and they're pretty similar. So as far as what Paul really looked like, that's pretty close to it. Okay, so here he is. Here's his biography. He was not born Paul. I don't know if you knew that. He was born Saul of Tarsus, sometime between 6 and 10 CE of the Common Era. The Roman Catholic Church just had the year of Paul from June 28th to June 28th of 2008 to June 29th of 2009. They celebrated the 2,000-year anniversary of Paul, and there were a lot of events connected with that. In fact, that's what kind of gave me the idea to do this. Okay, he was born a Jewish Pharisee from the tribe of Benjamin. He was a zealous persecutor of early Christians. So, in fact, he wasn't a Christian to begin with. He persecuted. He was on the other side. Persecuted them. Back then, they were not called Christians. Back then, they were called followers of the way. And he was, according to the book of Acts, he was present at the death of the first martyr, the first Christian martyr, Stephen. He was there. He witnessed that. As he was going from place to place, he was going from Jerusalem up to Damascus. He had a dramatic conversion experience on the road to Damascus where he encountered the risen Jesus and was blinded, was knocked down. Jesus said, basically, what are you doing? And Paul said, "Who are you?" And Jesus said, "I'm Jesus, who you're persecuting. Now knock it off." And sent him on to Damascus, and Paul was radically converted. He went from one day from persecuting Christians to becoming one. He was baptized and started preaching, and started trying to get more members of the faith system. After 3 years in Arabia, Damascus, and Jerusalem, and this time is a little fuzzy, he embarked on his first missionary journey, where he went through Turkey, the region of Turkey. He was there for about 14 years. And then because he was so successful, not so successful at converting other Jews to Christianity, but very successful at converting Gentiles to Christianity, it forced this question of, what do we do with these Gentiles? As you may recall, the earliest church was all Jewish. Jesus was Jewish. All of his disciples were Jewish. The early followers were all Jewish, and so in their minds, this wasn't a new religion. In their minds, this was just Judaism progressing. And then all of a sudden, you get these Gentiles who are not familiar with the traditions of the Jewish Bible. They're not familiar with the Jewish laws, the Jewish practices, and the question became, how Jewish do we need to make these people? Can they be Christians without being Jews? So they settled this at the Council of Jerusalem. They decided, no, we don't need to make them totally Jewish. We'll give them a few guidelines to follow, but by and large, as long as they have faith, that's the important thing. And we're not gonna make them follow all the traditions of Judaism. And that's why today, by the way, you can eat lobster with a clear conscience. Okay, so after this council, he embarked on his second and third missionary journeys. He went to Turkey and Greece. And at the end of those, he returned to Jerusalem. His presence at the temple, he showed up at the temple and he incited a riot. The Jews of Jerusalem were not happy with him. And so he was, for his own protection, was taken into Roman custody. He was then transferred to Caesarea and held there for 2 years. He appealed his case to the emperor. In appealing his case to the emperor, they said, "All right, you want to go to Rome? We're going to send you to Rome," and they shipped him off to Rome. Unfortunately, he was shipwrecked en route, ended up in Malta, and finally, eventually arrived in Rome and was placed under house arrest there for 2 years. That's kind of what the Book of Acts tells us. The Book of Acts kind of ends its story there, but we know he was ultimately beheaded outside of Rome sometime around 64 A.D. or C.E. Under the Emperor Nero, under the persecution of the Christians that happened following the fire in Rome in 64. And then his sarcophagus is now housed in the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls in Rome, and so that's where his final resting place is. Okay. So here's the geography of St. Paul. As you can see, the guy got around. You'll see there his first journey, his second journey, his third journey, and the cities. Most of the cities in which are mentioned are cities that he visited. And then you can see what I tried to do, how I tried to kind of follow his footsteps. In 2010, there kind of went over to Jerusalem, Israel, Jordan area. 2011, spent my way working my way through Greece and Turkey. And then in 2012, over to Italy and Malta. I don't know how he did it. I mean, it took me all that time, and I had GPS, and I was in a car. Literally took me tens of thousands of miles to retrace some of his steps. So he was very ambitious in his travels. Okay. So what I want to do here is talk a little bit about these trips. This was 2010, and you can see these. I'm gonna show you some maps. All these little dots are places that I was able to visit on these trips, and as you can see, and again, I mean, for a biblical scholar, this was really a trip of a lifetime to be able to go to these places that are talked about in the Bible. To be able to see these things, it was just really a thrill. So obviously, I got up into the northern area. There are a number of Christian sites. You will probably recognize them from your Bible. Sea of Galilee. Okay, this is where it gets technically. Here we go. There we go. Okay, interactive. All right, there it is. That's what the Sea of Galilee looks like. Looks a lot like. Reminds me a lot of Sebago, and it's about the same size. Where's my little? Sorry, my little cursor keeps disappearing. There it is. Okay. Got up to Bethsaida in the north. You'll see the Jordan River runs between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. It also actually runs in the north. It runs into the Sea of Galilee. And to see what it looked like back in Jesus' time, that's where you got to go. You got to go to the north. And that's kind of what it looks like. Now, this was a little park in the north. That is the Jordan River. There are signs all over the place. Do not enter the water. It's fresh water. They use that for drinking and irrigation. So they don't want anybody in the water. So of course I went in the water. How can you go to the Jordan River and not go in the Jordan River? You know what I'm saying? It was kind of fun. Oops, sorry. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay, this is where the technology. Sorry about this. All right, this will. Okay, sorry. Okay, so yeah, Capernaum, Sea of Galilee, Tiberias, Cana. Got into some of the Jewish areas of the Dead Sea, Qumran, Ein Gedi. I'll show you the Dead Sea here, if I can find my. I think part of the. There we go. Dead Sea is just what it's called. Very dead. It has a very high salt content. As you can see, they manufacture a lot of salt there, just literally mountains of salt. So you can, it's so salty, you float on top. They have pictures of people reading newspapers on it. Masada, Qumran, got a chance to go through the caves, the caves where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. This is cave number 4, I believe. Also got a chance to go to Bethlehem. This is in Bethlehem. This is the spot on which supposedly Jesus was born. It's under this altar here. It's deep down in a church. This is the spot. It's protected by a marble floor. But what you can do, and it's under the altar. You go in. You put your hand down right into this little circle, and you can touch the actual bedrock on which supposedly Jesus was born. This is the manger site. I also got to do some fun things too. It wasn't all work. Got to go down to Eilat, which is a wonderful resort area. Yeah, beautiful. Did some snorkeling there. They have a beautiful aquarium, and those were some of the underwater pictures. It's really gorgeous. Also home to the famous Eilat stone. Yeah, some of you know I have an interest in geology, and was able to bring some of this back. I should also mention, while I'm on the topic, outside when this is done, and you all head over to the gelato, etc. There's a little display case. There is some of this Eilat stone in there, and some of it I had a chance to cut and facet. There's a couple pieces in that case. You can take a look at that. And then this was also a thrill, going over to Petra. Those of you that have seen the Indiana Jones movies, some of them were filmed here. I just happened to see my shadow and took a picture. Actually, it was filmed in this valley here. It's called the Treasury, pretty famous building. But the whole site is just amazing. Carved out of rock. This is called the monastery. Okay. The thing that I didn't get about these pictures, I had seen pictures of this place before I had gone, but the scale of this thing, the size. Take a look at this. Look at this person right here. Okay, that's the size. Literally, I had to put rocks in order to get up onto the doorstep. of this place. The doorstep is well over 6 feet high, just to get onto it. So it's incredibly large. They just carved this right out of the cliffs and the canyons. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so now I don't have time to go through all these sites. They're pretty cool, but there are 2 sites here that have to do with Paul. I mentioned he was placed under house arrest in Caesarea, and this is what it looks like. This was created by Herod the Great. It is a beautiful site. It's right on the Mediterranean. This is what it would have looked like back in the day. And this is, so, you know, we're talking house arrest, but Paul wasn't suffering at this. And I believe this, one of these sections is the swimming pool that he had. And so there's the foundation, you can see it today, and look, there's the swimming pool still there. So, you know, he wasn't exactly suffering there, but he wasn't free to go anywhere else, so. Okay, and then Jerusalem, obviously, just within Jerusalem, there's so many sites. And again, I'm not going to go through all these, but just hit some of them. Obviously, for Christians, the most holy site in the world is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This is a church that houses both Golgotha, the place where Jesus was crucified, and his tomb. They're both found in the same church. So if you go in this church, you go up to the right is Golgotha. If you go to the left, you will find his tomb. There are a number of different Christian denominations that operate this this church. They don't always get along. They're very territorial. And the story, I can't resist this. You see this ladder here. The story is one of the monks of one of the Christian denominations went to clean the windows one day and took the ladder out there, and because they were responsible for the windows. Didn't realize, though, that the parapet belonged to a different church organization. So he left his ladder there, and there it is, but they wouldn't allow him to go back onto the parapet. And so the people that own the parapet weren't allowed to touch the ladder because that was owned by a different. So the story is that ladder's been there for like 200 years, and it hasn't moved. So it's kind of funny. But inside, this is what it looks like. This is the spot where this is Golgotha. You can see there's a plexiglass here. You can see the bedrock, and again, kind of the same thing as in Bethlehem. A little hole in the floor. You can go under the altar and touch the bedrock. This is the slab on which they supposedly laid out Jesus' body after they took it down from the cross. And then this is the sepulcher. This is the place that houses the tomb itself. There's an antechamber right here. You see there's a stone. That's what's left, supposedly, of the stone that was rolled in front of Jesus' tomb. And underneath this marble slab is Jesus' tomb. So really what you're looking at right now is the most sacred site in Christianity. This is some graffiti that's under the church and really helped establish the fact that this was the right place. This was really where Jesus' tomb was located. Okay. So again, there's a lot of sites. Jerusalem is a wonderful place, really interesting. One of the most famous, third holiest site in Islam, the Dome of the Rock. This is the rock on which Abraham almost sacrificed his son. This is also the traditional site in which Muhammad ascended into heaven. There is not general access to this now. You need to be Muslim in order to enter that. And this is the most sacred site in all of Judaism. This is the Western Wall. So this is what is left of the Jewish temple. The Jewish temple was destroyed in 70 A.D. by the Romans. Would have been a heck of a demolition project because it was quite a structure. And this is sort of the remains of what happened, if you can imagine. The Western Wall is the outer retaining wall built by Herod. Jews will go there to pray. It's very, very sacred site. And the tradition is to take your prayers and roll them up, write them down on a little piece of paper, roll them up, and shove them into the cracks of the wall. In fact, it's kind of neat. Obviously, not all Jews can get to Jerusalem, and so they do have a fax service that you can fax your prayers in, and somebody will take them. They come off the fax machine and they'll shove them into the wall for you. So that's kind of neat. Now this is a stone block that I found actually in Istanbul. Why it's in Istanbul and not in Jerusalem, I do not know. But you can all read that, right? It's Greek, right? But actually, this belonged to the Jerusalem temple, and what it says is right there: no intruder is allowed in the courtyard and within the wall surrounding the temple. Whoever enters will invite death for himself. Okay, so Gentiles were not allowed into this area, and this is the same thing that Paul was accused of doing. All right, violating this very law, and that's why he was arrested and carted off. So it's kind of interesting that that's still there. Okay. All right, so moving on. That was Israel. Here we are in Turkey. I should mention, I had a little bit of trepidation in first going to Turkey. I do not speak the language. I learned a few phrases on the plane on the way over. I did not know a soul there, and I flew into Ankara and just kind of went with it. That night, I had some jet lag. I finally fell asleep, and about midnight, I was literally jostled out of bed. I was like, what is going on? As it turned out, it was a 6.0 earthquake, my first night there. Eventually, everything was okay. I got my rental car, started driving from Ankara to Cappadocia, and hit this hailstorm. This hailstorm just came down. It was hailing all over the place. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure this is a good idea. But those were the only glitches in the whole thing. Cappadocia was the first place I went. If you've ever been, it is incredible. These are volcanic tuffs. It's very soft geology, and people in the past have taken to carving into. They've carved houses and homes. Some of these scenes were featured, I believe, were featured with the Ewoks, right, in Star Wars. Look at this. Watch that first step as you're going down. You can see these. I mean, they're just whole cliffs. These dwellings as you go in. There's stairs in there. They go up. They go all the way up to the top. It's incredible. This was a monastery. This place. You can go in and you can get. You can literally get lost. These tunnels go for miles, and sometimes they're very ornate facades. So what do they look like on the inside? Well, again, just as ornate. Again, this is all just carved right out of the rock itself. They've carved churches, cathedrals, and in some cases, some of the frescoes are still there. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's just surreal. Kind of a neat place to be. From Cappadocia, headed south, got down to all the way down to Antioch. Antioch is a very special place. This is the first official Christian church, and this is the place where Christians were first called Christians. So this is the place where both Paul and Peter supposedly were. This is the facade. The facade was added later, but it's really built into a cave. This is what it looks like on the inside. It's very simple. There's an altar there, the cave. To the right is a small little grotto, little pool, where they used to do the early baptisms. And to the left, an escape tunnel that would go out through the mountain so that if Christians were being persecuted as they were coming in, they could escape and flee their persecutors. Now I got to tell this story. The food there was phenomenal. So I get into Antioch, and I'm trying to find my hotel. The GPS is not helping me at all, and I didn't know why. I could not find this hotel. But I did see this sign for this cave church of St. Peter, and I knew I had to go there, so I thought, well, okay, I'll stop there. So it's a Monday, so I stopped. Drive into the parking lot. Parking lot's empty. Go up to the cave church, and there's a man just coming out, and he says, they're closed on Monday, but if you have the money, they'll let you in. And I said, okay. Now, this guy was an American, and he was speaking English, which I was shocked. This was the first and only American that I'd met in Turkey. So I was like, all right. So I pay the money, and I go in, and there are, it's he and his wife and his friend and me. So there's four of us, and we've got the whole church to ourselves. which was great. So we had about half hour, got a chance to walk around. Finally, the guards come in and they say you got to leave because there's people coming, and you're not supposed to be in here. We're like, okay. So we leave. Well, as we're leaving, the people coming turned out to be a Turkish television crew. All right. So they see us and they say, oh, you know, you guys must be visitors. We want to interview you, right? And I'm like, well, I don't speak Turkish, but this American, turns out he speaks very fluent Turkish, and so they're like, all right, we want to interview him, but we want to interview you too, the two of us. So we said, all right, so we'll go on TV. So this guy's having a very lively discussion with this guy, and they're going on and on. I have no idea what they're talking about, right? It's all in Turkish, they're going on. And then finally, you know, they introduce me, and I say hi, and introduce his wife, and she says hi, and then they wrap up the interview. So after the interview, I asked him, I said, well, what were they talking about? And he said, it was an interview about food, about the regional food and how good, you know, the food in Antioch is compared to the rest of Turkey. I said, well, is this like a local thing? He goes, no, this is national TV. You're going to be on national TV in 2 weeks. You're going to be all over Turkey. I'm like, great. So I mentioned this guy. I said, you know, I really appreciate your help. Oh, and I told him, I don't know where my hotel is. He looks at it, he goes, I know where it is. He goes, it's on a pedestrian mall. That's why you're not able to find it. He said, I'll take you to it. So he takes me to it. I said, I'll tell you what, I really appreciate your help. I'm not doing anything. You know, I just got here. Can I take you out for dinner tonight? I said, you know, I'd love to, you know, repay the favor. And he said, sure. He said, we'll come back and pick you up. So he comes back, picks us up, and he says, okay, I got a special place I want to take you. I said, all right. So we go south. We're within spitting distance of the Syrian border now. All right. I can see Syria. It's right there. All right. And he goes, this is a special restaurant. He said, we go here for special occasions. You're going to love it. So I say, all right. So it's he, his wife. They have a friend from Russia who's visiting, and myself. All right. So I go into this place, and it looks like an airport terminal. I mean, huge windows. It's up on this bluff. It's overlooking the entire region. It's just gorgeous. The sun is setting. We get there early. All right. For dinner, early is like 6 or 7. All right. They're not eating till 8 or 9. I mean, much later. So we get there early. All these waiters come out in tuxedos, and they escort us, and they sit us down, and then we start ordering. And I said, you know, I don't know what to order. I said, why don't you go ahead and do the ordering? And he says, okay. So this is just the appetizers, okay? This is just the appetizers, all right? I mean, they're coming out, they're bringing food on food. We order drinks, we got the appetizers, and then it's time for the main course. And I'm like, I don't know. So he's like, all right, I'll order. So we're getting lamb, and we're getting all these, you know, these entrees. And then afterwards, the waiter comes up to him, and he whispers in his ear, he's like, you know, do you want the special dessert? Well, they make the special dessert only in this region. I think it's called kefka. He's like, oh, yeah, we got to get the special dessert. So he's like, okay. So they bring out the special dessert, and now this time this guy's looking across at me. He's like, now I know what you're thinking. You know, this is going to be really expensive, but, you know, it'll be okay. So we get the special dessert. Then the musicians come out, and they're strolling, and they're playing for us. I mean, like, all right. So then he brings the bill, right? Brings the bill for all this. So there's 4 of us. We've had drinks, we've had appetizers, we've had entrees, we've had the special dessert. We got all this ambiance. And I look at this, and he looks at me. He goes, "Are you okay?" He goes, "Because they'll take Visa." I go, "No. I got cash. $24. $24. It's totally worth the trip, man. I'm going back. I'm totally going back. Totally going back. It was awesome. So it was great. So it was one of the highlights. Within spitting distance of Syria, it was terrific. One of the best meals I've had. Okay, Tarsus. Sorry, Tarsus is the birthplace of St. Paul, and they have honored it. There's a nice little architectural park there, nicely landscaped. They found a first-century house there. They are attributing it to St. Paul. This is a first-century well, and this is Paul's well. It goes back to tradition. Today, it's obviously the wheel is modern, but people can go there and you can actually use it. You can get water. Supposedly, the water has curative properties. So I happen to have a water bottle, and I filled it up with the water there. The water's up in my office. I've still got it. So that's kind of neat. And then on the other side, you see this this plexiglass area. That's the remains of this first century house that they have excavated. Again, tradition links it to St. Paul. And if you look inside, there's a cup there that you may be looking at St. Paul's cup right there. Also in Tarsus, fairly recently excavated is this, what they call the Antique Road. This was Main Street back in the day. So when we're talking about following in the footsteps of Paul, this is certainly a road that he would have walked on. And back in the day, this is what it most likely looked like. Okay, all right, let me skip over some of these other sites for the sake of time. Okay, Olympos. Has nothing to do with Paul, but it's cool. Olympos. Mount Olympos has this natural gas that's trapped under the mountain. And those of you, do we have any chemists here? Where's the, I thought I saw. Okay, yeah, there you go. Bill, here you go. You can recreate this for us in the lab. This is the chemical analysis. They've done a lot of study on this. It's a very rare mixture of gas. What it does is as it seeps out of the mountain, once it hits oxygen, it ignites. Okay? So it's very cool. So you go up to this mountain, and this thing is, the mountain is on fire. It is literally on fire. As this gas, and there's many different sites around the mountain as this gas leaks out. It's called the chimera. And so the myth is Zeus captured this fire-breathing dragon, right, and locked him up underneath this mountain, and that's what's causing the fire, the chimera. This is also what gave birth to the eternal flame that is used in the Olympics. This is Mount Olympos. Okay, that's where that comes from. So it's really kind of a neat site to see. Let's see. Let me skip. Okay, now I know you're going to be really jealous of this. This is what's called the Turquoise Coast. Yeah, it's one of the beaches. I know scholarship can be very difficult at times and take you to some difficult places. That's one. From here, now, I need to be honest. I pulled this picture off the web because the day I visited it, it was drizzly and rainy, so it did not look as nice as this. But from here, I then took a boat over to Butterfly Valley, which is gorgeous and filled with lots of butterflies. That's what Butterfly Valley looks like. And there's a waterfall back here at the end. So it's really kind of a neat. This is called the Turquoise Coast, gorgeous area.